Hello and welcome to this new video from English OTP. My name is Bernard and today we're going to be talking about Crooked Letter, Crooked Letter. A novel by Tom Franklin, which is compulsory reading in some German-speaking countries and also has a big discussion revolving around it in, the international community. And if you want to tap into the discussion, please just go down to the comment section, enter your comments, ask questions about this video, about things about Crooked Letter that maybe you're not sure of, or that you don't quite understand, or you want to know more about, or you want to discuss. And this video is going to be a basics video. This time, this doesn't mean, as in the essential videos, and maybe you've seen the essentials on a globalization video, that there will be everything covering the whole topic in the video. That one worked well with globalization because it was about a 20-minute video and we could really cover all of the basics on globalization that you need to know to talk about it, especially in like a school setting. This is not possible with Crooked Letter just because we need to focus on so many different aspects of the novel. So if we did a bare essentials video, it would probably be well above an hour, and that doesn't really make sense. So this is going to be a series of videos on Crooked Letter, and in this video we'll be tackling the basics. So let's jump right into those. This is what the presentation in the end about Crooked Letter will look like. So we're going to be talking about basics today. We'll be talking about the macro plot. We'll be talking about characters. We'll be talking about topics and symbols the novel uses. And there will also be some further points for discussion at the end. So you will be able to access this Prezi or download it if you send us an email, especially when it's finished. And I will maybe make a walkthrough presentation of, a walkthrough video presentation of the whole thing. Okay, today, basics time. So for the basics, we have 4 different categories. When we talk about a novel, we usually talk about the genre. So we talk about the plot line, we talk about the setting or the settings, and about the narrative mode. So for Crooked Letter, the genre is a crime novel. If you're not sure what a crime novel is, a crime novel basically is a novel, which is a piece of fiction, which centers on a crime. And that doesn't mean someone steals something from a grocery store on page 2 and the rest is all about romance. That's not a crime novel. So the crime really has to play a very important part in this novel. And this is, of course, the case for Crooked Letter. Maybe you'd say, well, but, much of the novel actually centers on Silas and Larry and their personal relationship and also their development. So is it maybe a Bildungsroman? And yeah, you could say that. You could say it's a Bildungsroman, I guess. We have 2 main characters who go through a development in the novel, and at the end of the novel they have changed, usually for the better in a Bildungsroman, right? Coming of age novel would be a specific type of Bildungsroman. This is not the case here, but you could say it's a Bildungsroman. But generally I would say stick with crime novel, and that should be fine. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the basic plot drive. So usually we talk about a basic plot of a novel. For example, we could talk about the basic plot of a fairy tale. Princess is in need of help. Prince helps princess and they marry. So that would be the basic plot of the basic fairy tale. In this case, I would say the basic plot is the relationship of Larry and Silas and how it develops. And we have 2 actions that really drive the plot, and those are the 2 disappearances. Because we have a very slow development of the relationship of Larry and Silas, so they get to know each other, they do things together, and then this first disappearance happens, and this is when the relationship radically changes. Right? So we have Silas getting into contact with Cindy, and everything takes off from there. And this changes the relationship completely until the second disappearance happens nearly 30 years later. And this relationship between Larry and Silas, which is non-existent at that point of time, again changes completely with the second disappearance. So I would say those two disappearances are catalysts. So if you're not sure what a catalyst is, maybe you should have listened a bit closer in chemistry. So a catalyst is something that helps a relationship to completely develop maybe into something else, something that sort of brings a lot of action into this relationship. So we have two disappearances, two catalysts, and the relationship is changed completely twice. Okay, and again, next point, setting. Again, we have two things. We have one setting, which is Chabot, Mississippi in 1979, and one setting, which is Chabot, Mississippi in 2008. So you could say, how is that two settings? Well, usually we distinguish, when we talk about setting, we distinguish between place and time of a story. So setting doesn't only mean the place the story is set, but also the time when the story is set. I mean, you could say, well, there are three settings. We're also talking about, we have Chicago to some extent, but that's on the periphery. I don't think we need to discuss that. That's not really as important. I think you can use Chicago as a setting, as a counter setting to Chabot, because in many ways it is everything that Chabot isn't, but we are really focusing on Chabot here. But the interesting part, again, in this novel, which I think it's a great novel, you can really take a lot out of it, is that we do have the same place, this very rural place, Chabot. We have it in 1979 and in 2008, and we have so much has happened in between. Just like so much has happened in between in the lives of Larry and Silas. So this just makes for very interesting reading. You can really, there's a lot of substance that the book can work with those two settings, with those two disappearances, and all of it is really intricately woven into the lives of and into the relationship of Larry and Silas. The last thing I quickly want to talk about is the narrative mode. The narrative mode is third-person narration. So we have some sort of omniscient narrator talking or telling us the story, but it is not so much an omniscient narrator here. He or she does seem to know what is going on throughout the whole story, but each time the story is told through either Silas's eyes or through Larry's eyes. And it doesn't mean that they're reporting it in the first person, but we have this third person narration with those two as focalizers, which is also very interesting. It's something that, makes this novel so readable and so interesting, that quite often we have one event and we have two sides of it. We have Larry telling us about how he saw it, and we have Silas telling us about how he saw it. And of course, this is just a great idea if you want to discuss the relationship of two people who obviously go through a couple of things together, to see how Larry reacts and how Silas reacts, how Larry felt in the situation, how Silas felt in the situation. And, quite often in relationships, we don't have the chance to look into the head of, our friend or maybe the other family member. We have our own perspective. And in this book, in this novel, we have the chance of seeing through both of their eyes. So it helps us to understand how they develop, how they feel towards each other, how they feel towards different events. So, that's the basics. Remember, basics of a novel: genre, plot, setting, and narrative mode. Okay. So if you have any questions, please write them down into the comments. We'll be happy to read them and to answer them. You You can also drop us a line on our YouTube email, and looking forward to discussing with you. And the next video will also be on Crooked Letter, will be out soon. We'll be adding them, week after week, depending on when we get through with them. And yeah, that's going to be it for today.